Blake Lively's war with Justin Baldoni just exploded into something no one saw coming. Forget the polished red carpets and Instagram smiles. Behind the scenes, this is looking more like a Hollywood nightmare. A brand new filing from actress Isabela Ferrer, the girl who played young Lily in It Ends With Us, has blown the case wide open. She says Baldoni's camp tried to control her subpoena response, allegedly using money and intimidation as weapons. That's not just messy, it's potentially devastating. Because if Ferrer's story holds, Justin isn't just fighting Blake's word anymore, he's facing a pattern of power, coercion, and retaliation. Add to that his $400 million countersuit already tossed in court, his attempt to leak Blake's 300-page deposition shut down by a judge, and now a March 2026 trial looming over his career like a guillotine. The question tonight isn't whether this case is dramatic, it's whether Justin Baldoni is already sinking under the weight of his own moves, and if Ferrer's revelations are the nail in the coffin. Before Ferrer's filing, the courtroom had spoken, loudly. On June 9, 2025, Judge Louis J. Lyman dismissed Justin Baldoni's sprawling $400 million countersuit against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, their publicist, and others. The judge essentially said the case didn't clear the bar. Baldoni's team hadn't shown the defendants knowingly made false statements, and key assertions tied back to protected speech in Blake's complaint. In plain English, the flip the narrative play didn't land in court. That ruling didn't hand Blake a total victory on everything, but it did reframe the battlefield. Instead of litigating whether Blake's allegations ruined Justin's reputation, the path forward refocused on Blake's original claims: sexual harassment, retaliation, and a hostile work environment she says she faced during It Ends With Us. In civil court, you're not proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You're proving it's more likely than not that the misconduct happened. When a countersuit this big gets thrown out, it clears the fog, and it chips away at the idea that Blake's case is just a PR war. It tells you the judge is looking at evidence, not noise. And with that, the pressure swings back to Baldoni's side. Either document a defense that survives discovery, or brace for a trial where his explanations go under oath. Enter Isabela Ferrer. Not a blogger, not a pundit, but a cast member who portrayed young Lily, directly tied to Blake's character. In a filing made public on August 18th, Ferrer alleges that after Blake's team subpoenaed her earlier, Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios tried to control how she responded, withholding or conditioning payments and pressuring her legal approach. Her attorneys describe this as manipulative, intimidating, and inappropriate conduct, and they're seeking sanctions. They also argue that a subsequent subpoena from Baldoni's side largely mirrored Blake's original request and functioned like a harassing tactic, even raising concerns about exposing her private address. Why this matters? Jurors and judges pay attention to patterns. Blake alleges a hostile, retaliatory environment. Ferrer, a younger actress who worked under the same director, now claims coercive pressure tied to a legal process. Those are not identical facts, but they rhyme in a way that supports a broader story about power and control. Ferrer's vantage point is compelling. She operated inside the production ecosystem, close to the material, close to the people, and close to the timeline. If her attorneys can back up claims with emails, contracts, payment records, or message threads, the case gains a second anchor point that isn't Blake. For Justin's side, the task becomes twofold: challenge Ferrer's credibility and neutralize the paper trail. Any inconsistency, any contractual nuance, any prior communication where Ferrer agreed to terms, expect it to surface. But if Ferrer's receipts align with her filing, it turns a she said, he said into they said. And that's the kind of evolution that moves settlement leverage, shapes jury expectations, and narrows the defense playbook heading into 2026. Just days before Ferrer's filing, a second front opened. Blake's deposition transcript, a nearly 300-page document ripe for cherry-picking, briefly hovered over the public docket. Baldoni's team filed it, and for a moment, it looked like the internet would be fed 1,000 hot takes by morning. Blake's attorneys moved fast, arguing there was no legitimate reason to broadcast the raw transcript and warning that the move was about optics, not litigation. The judge sided with Blake. The court granted the motion to strike and kept the transcript under wraps. This matters for more than optics. In high-profile cases, a single out-of-context line from a rough transcript can become the narrative, even though depositions are messy, meandering, and meant for lawyers, not headlines. By sealing that transcript, the judge effectively told both sides, win this in here, not out there. It also blunted an attempt to turn a procedural step into a PR weapon. For viewers, the signal is clear. The court is narrowing the noise. If Justin hoped a dramatic public readout would reframe Blake's credibility, that avenue is now closed. The fight returns to evidence, corroboration, and credible witnesses, which loops us right back to Ferrer's filing. If the defense can't score easy points in the court of public opinion via leaked transcripts, they must score them on paper and under oath. That's a harder game, and the clock is already running. Mark the calendar, March 2026. That's when a federal judge expects this dispute to land in a courtroom where the threshold is more likely than not. A long runway like this is not downtime. It's where discovery hardens, motions set the boundaries, and witness strategy crystallizes. The judge, earlier this year, even flagged concerns about pretrial publicity and attorney conduct, a sign that the court is policing the tone around the case as tightly as the filings inside it. From a stakes perspective, Ferrer's entry does three things. First, it raises the cost of silence for anyone else with relevant knowledge: crew, department heads, vendors, who now must decide whether to share what they know to avoid being surprised on the stand. Second, it pushes both sides to paper up: indemnity agreements, payment ledgers, email threads about subpoenas, counsel communications. Third, it creates a credibility ladder for a jury. If Ferrer's claims are corroborated, her account boosts Blake's. If they're not, the defense will try to use that to undercut the entire pattern argument. On Justin's side, there was a small procedural window left after the countersuit was dismissed to amend narrow contract-related claims. He didn't move forward. That choice concentrates his energy where it matters now, resisting Blake's allegations and answering Ferrer's. And it sets up 2026 as the year where documents, not declarations, decide the arc of his career. Viewers keep asking the blunt question, could Justin be found liable? In civil court, the bar is not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's whether the scales tip to 51%, that his conduct more likely than not crossed legal lines. That standard rewards patterns backed by documents. Blake alleges harassment, retaliation, and a hostile environment. Ferrer alleges intimidation and financial leverage tied to her legal response after a subpoena. Neither allegation alone guarantees a verdict, but together, if backed by contracts, emails, and payment records, they create a coherent story of power applied the same way to different people in different moments. What will matter most? Paper trails, indemnity clauses, correspondence about covering Ferrer's legal fees, instructions or conditions tied to those payments. Consistency. Do Blake's timelines and Ferrer's experiences align with call sheets, production emails, or third-party communications? Motive and response. After Blake spoke up, did the behavior toward her and those around her change in ways that look retaliatory? And credibility under oath. If Ferrer's details map cleanly to receipts, her testimony becomes a force multiplier for Blake. To be crystal clear, these are allegations, and Baldoni denies them. The defense will argue that Ferrer misunderstood standard legal and contractual processes, that payments were handled by the book, and that any subpoena overlap is routine, not harassment. They'll also emphasize that a countersuit dismissal doesn't prove Blake's entire case. It just resets the board. But if the board now includes Ferrer's corroborated claims, a jury could decide the story makes more sense with Blake. And in a civil case, that's all the law requires. Here's where we land. The judge shut down the detour that could have turned Blake's deposition into a public circus. The court tossed Justin's $400 million countersuit, cutting the legs off the "she ruined me" counter-narrative. And now Isabela Ferrer, from inside the same production, alleges that pressure and leverage followed her after a subpoena. None of this is a verdict, but it's a trajectory. If Ferrer's filing is backed by documents, it becomes the bridge between Blake's account and a broader pattern the court can see. If it isn't, Justin's defense will hammer that gap. Either way, the venue is set. March 2026? Between now and then, receipts will matter more than rumors, and sworn testimony will matter more than statements. Stay locked. We'll track every motion, every ruling, and every new voice that steps out of the shadows. Because in this story, the truth won't trend. It'll testify.